The moment the cameras rolled on that fateful morning, the tension in the studio was so thick it felt like the air itself could shatter. Cher, dazzling in a glittering black blazer, strode onto the view, set like a storm wearing heels. The audience erupted in applause, but beneath the surface, there was a strange electric hum, as if everyone sensed something was about to explode. Across the table, co-host Joy Behar leaned forward, her smile tight, eyes glinting with the thrill of impending drama. Who would make the first move? Who would throw the first verbal punch? It didn't take long to find out. From the moment Cher settled into her seat, the conversation veered into dangerous waters. A segment on celebrity responsibility became the perfect setup for disaster. Joy, with her trademark dry bite, lobbed a subtle but sharp comment about some singers thinking they're political experts just because they can sell out stadiums. The crowd chuckled, but Cher didn't. Her eyes locked on Joy like laser sights. "Oh, honey," Cher said, her voice dripping with venomous sweetness. "At least, I sell out stadiums. The only thing you've been selling lately is recycled punchlines." Gasps rippled across the audience. Whoa, live TV gold. Who could look away? Joy's smirk faltered for just a second, replaced by a flicker of irritation. Then, like a seasoned fighter, she came back swinging. "You know, Cher, you've got a lot of opinions for someone who's spent more time auto-tuning than reading." The room went silent. The audience's eyes darted from one woman to the other, as if watching two wildcats circle in a cage. Who would pounce first? Cher leaned forward, her tone lowering to something dangerously calm. "Joy, sweetie, if you're looking for attention, insulting me isn't the way to do it. I could end your career with one tweet." It was the kind of line that doesn't just spark controversy, it detonates it. Co-host Whoopi Goldberg shifted uncomfortably, trying to diffuse the situation with a forced laugh, but it was too late. The gloves were off. The atmosphere was electric, a crackling storm of ego and pride on full display. Viewers at home were glued to their screens, waiting for the next explosion, and then it happened. Joy slammed her coffee mug down so hard, the sound echoed through the set. "If you think you're above criticism, maybe you shouldn't be." "Hear it all," the audience gasped. The producers panicked, and Cher's eyes went cold. The silence that followed Joy's outburst felt like an eternity. But it lasted no more than 2 heartbeats before Cher broke it with a slow, dangerous smile. "Maybe," she said, her voice cutting through the air like a blade. "I shouldn't be here at all." With amateurs, the word amateurs hit like a slap across the table. Whoopi, sensing the entire segment spiraling into chaos, tried to change the subject. "Ladies, we've got to stick to the topic," but Cher's eyes never left Joy's. And Joy wasn't backing down. "Amateurs," Joy repeated, her laughter sharp and humorless. "I've been in this business longer than you've been relevant." The audience went wild, gasps, nervous laughter, and that half-shocked murmur that live producers dread and live viewers live for. Offstage, a frantic producer made circular motions with his hand, signaling to cut to commercial, but the floor director hesitated. This was too good, too raw, too real. Cher's hands were steady as she adjusted her earring, a deliberate move that said, "I'm not just responding, I'm preparing to destroy you." "Sweetheart," she said, "relevance is the only reason you even know my name. If you weren't sitting at this table every morning, would anyone recognize you in the street? Be honest." Joy leaned back, crossing her arms, but her smirk had vanished. The tension had shifted. Cher had the upper hand now, and she knew it. The camera zoomed in, catching every flicker of emotion across Joy's face. Sunny Hostin, caught between horror and fascination, tried to jump in with a bridge. "We all have different platforms, different ways of reaching people," but Cher sliced through her words. "Exactly. And some of us actually reach them." The room exploded into cheers and jeers, the kind of chaotic noise that makes a segment unforgettable. Joy's jaw tightened, her cheeks flushed red. "You know what, Cher? If you're here to throw insults, then maybe you should just what?" Cher's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper that somehow carried across the entire set. Joy's lips parted, ready to fire back, but she caught the flash in Cher's eyes. This wasn't just banter, this was war. And then, in a move no one saw coming, Joy stood up. The live studio audience gasped, the co-hosts froze, and Cher slowly stood to match her. Two women, face to face, standing inches apart, live on national television. Whoopi's voice cracked as she called for a break, but the network didn't. Cut, not yet. They knew what they had. The moment that would dominate every headline in America by lunchtime. The air between Cher and Joy felt radioactive, a silent battle of wills happening in front of millions. The audience didn't breathe. Even the crew had frozen in place, torn between fear and fascination. Cher tilted her head, her lips curling into that trademark smirk that has ended careers and started revolutions. "Go on, Joy," she said, her voice silky but lethal. "Finish that sentence. Tell America exactly what you think I should do." Joy's eyes narrowed. "I think you should walk off this set before you embarrass yourself any further." Gasps thundered through the audience like a wave. Somewhere off stage, a producer muttered, "We're done." but no one moved to cut the feed. This was beyond television now. This was a cultural event in the making. Cher took a slow step forward, her heels clicking with the finality of a judge's gavel. Embarrass myself. Joy. I've lived through decades of critics, scandals, and paparazzi hiding in my garbage cans. You've barely survived Twitter. The jab hit hard. Joy's face flushed deeper, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. At least I'm not still clinging to my hair extensions and pretending it's the 80s. The audience reacted like a crowd at a boxing match, half in shock, half cheering for blood. Cher's eyes went cold. You want to talk about the past? Let's talk about the fact that I have a past worth remembering. The crowd erupted. Whoopi tried to physically wedge herself between them now, hands out, pleading for calm. Ladies, we're live, but Cher brushed her aside with a casual wave, never breaking eye contact with Joy. You don't get to decide when I leave, Joy, but maybe you should decide if you can handle me staying. It was the ultimate power move, turning the choice back on Joy, putting her on the spot in front of millions. Joy opened her mouth, but no sound came out. The audience sensed her hesitation, the shift in control, and they roared their approval for Cher. And then, as if the producers had planned it, which they hadn't, the studio lights flickered. A brief technical glitch, but it added to the drama, casting the scene in shadow before snapping back to full brightness. Cher smiled. Looks like even the lights can't handle this heat. The crowd went wild, and Joy's face hardened into something unreadable. Whatever was coming next. It wouldn't be pretty. When the lights steadied again, Joy leaned forward, gripping the edge of the table like a woman about to overturn it. You think this is a game? Cher. Her voice cut through the roar of the audience, sharp and controlled, like she'd been saving this line for years. Cher didn't flinch. No, Joy. This is my stage now. That was it. The moment the studio truly split in two. Half the audience was chanting Cher's name like a rally, the other half shouting Joy's and defiance. The set had become an arena, and the two women in the center weren't backing down. Whoopi tried again to mediate, her voice strained. We're all friends here. Cher whipped her head toward her. Don't say that. Friends don't humiliate each other on live television. Then, turning back to Joy, but you've made a career out of it. Joy's eyes widened, but instead of firing back, she let the pause hang in the air, a tactic to build her next blow. You're right, she finally said, her tone dripping with mock sincerity. I have made a career out of speaking the truth, and the truth is, you're not the legend you think you are. You're a relic. The gasp from the audience felt almost physical. Even the camera operators seemed to lean in closer. Cher's smile didn't fade, but her voice dropped to a lethal whisper. Careful, Joy. Relics outlast everything else. The studio erupted again, the crowd's noise so deafening it threatened to blow out the mics. Offstage, a producer finally signaled for a commercial, but the control room overruled. The rating spike on the live monitor was skyrocketing. No one was cutting this short. Then, Cher turned to the audience, breaking the cardinal rule of live talk show etiquette, and addressed them directly. You all came here for a conversation, right? Well, here's one you'll never forget. The crowd cheered, and Joy's face tightened. Oh, we'll make sure they never forget it, she shot back. Suddenly, Sunny Hostin slammed her hands on the table. Enough. This is turning into a circus. But the damage was done. The cameras had caught Cher's slow, deliberate smirk at Joy's last remark, a smirk that said checkmate. Joy stood again, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. Cher remained seated this time, crossing her legs as if to say, I've already won. And that's when the floor manager stepped in, not to calm things down, but to whisper something in Whoopi's ear that made her eyes widen. Something was about to happen that no one, not even Cher, had seen coming. Whoopi's face went pale, her usual composure shattering for just a split second. She glanced at the floor manager, then at the control booth, and finally at Cher and Joy, as if weighing whether to say it aloud. The audience sensed the shift instantly. The energy in the room transformed from heated entertainment to breathless anticipation. Cher narrowed her eyes. What? She asked, her voice sharp and suspicious. Whoopi hesitated, then leaned into her mic. The network just told me we're on a 5-second delay now. That's never happened. Mid-show, a murmur rippled through the crowd. They knew what it meant. The network was bracing for something explosive, something they might have to censor. Cher's smile returned, slow and wicked. Oh, so they're worried about me now. She turned to the cameras, speaking to millions at home. Good, they should be, Joy scoffed, but her grip on the table tightened. You think this delay is for you? Please, it's for me, so they can cut the part where I finally say what America's been thinking for years. That got the crowd roaring again. The chants were deafening now, the studio pulsing with the thrill of impending chaos. Whoopi was visibly struggling to keep order. We have to move to the next segment, Cher interrupted, her voice booming over the audience. No, we're not moving anywhere until Joy says whatever she's dying to say. Come on, Joy, give them their headline. Joy's expression shifted, a dangerous glint in her eyes. She stood once more, looking down at Cher with the calm of someone about to drop a bomb. Fine, here it is. You've been riding on the fumes of your former glory for decades, and everyone in this industry knows it. You're not a queen, you're a nostalgia act. The studio exploded. The crowd screamed, half in outrage, half in savage delight. Cher's face didn't move for a moment, frozen, unreadable, until she slowly rose to her feet. Her voice, when it came, was low but razor-sharp. If I'm a nostalgia act, Joy, then why are you so desperate to fight me for screen time? The audience howled. Joy's jaw tightened, and for the first time, she didn't have an instant comeback. The balance had shifted again, and Cher was in control. Then came the voice of the floor manager again, urgent and low, relaying something else to Whoopi. Her eyes widened even further. The next words out of her mouth would ignite the biggest explosion yet. Whoopi took a deep breath, clearly dreading the words she was about to say. She looked between Cher, Joy, and the roaring audience, as if hoping for a last-second miracle to stop what was about to happen. But there was no stopping it now. The network, Whoopi said slowly, just approved a live audience vote on whether Cher should stay or leave the set. The studio went berserk. Gasps, shouts, cheers, it was a frenzy. Even the cameramen were shaking with adrenaline as they zoomed in on the women's faces. Cher's lips parted in disbelief. You're joking. Joy's smirk returned in full force. Oh, this is going to be fun. Whoopi raised her voice over the chaos. We've never done this before. Audience members will hold up red cards if they want Cher to leave. Green, if they want her to stay. Viewers at home can vote online right now. Results in 2 minutes. Cher took a slow, calculated step toward the audience, her eyes scanning the sea of faces. You really think you can vote me off my own stage? She asked, voice dripping. With challenge, Joy leaned into her mic. Not my stage, share the views, stage. And this stage belongs to the people watching. The floor crew rushed around handing out the colored cards while the crowd buzzed with an energy that felt almost dangerous. Cher crossed her arms, unbothered, while Joy practically fed off the tension, her grin growing wider by the second. 2 minutes, Whoopi reminded them, glancing nervously at the clock. Cher, never one to back down, addressed the audience directly. Think carefully before you hold up that red card, because if you send me out that door, you'll never see me on live TV again, and you'll regret it. The crowd roared at the provocation. Some shouted her name in defiance, others booed, the entire studio splitting into factions. Joy couldn't resist adding fuel to the fire. Promises, promises. With 30 seconds left, the chants reached a fever pitch. Cher took the moment to blow a kiss to her supporters, then turned her back on Joy, a move so dismissive it made the other woman blood boil. Finally, the countdown ended. Whoopi's voice trembled slightly as she read the results from the tablet handed to her by the floor manager. The decision was going to change everything. Whoopi's eyes flicked across the numbers on the screen, her expression tightening like she was holding back the kind of news that could split the earth in two. The audience leaned forward in their seats. Joy was practically vibrating with anticipation. Cher stood motionless, her gaze locked on Whoopi, like a predator watching for the slightest twitch. The audience, Whoopi began, her voice steady, but laced with tension, has voted 51% for Cher to leave, 49% for her to stay. The studio detonated. Shouts, cheers, and boos erupted all at once. The razor-thin margin made the result feel even more volatile. Cher blinked slowly, absorbing the number like it was a personal insult, and maybe it was. Joy's face lit up with savage triumph. Looks like the people have spoken, she said, dragging out each word for maximum sting. Cher turned her head toward her with a calm that was more threatening than any scream. And half the people still want me here, which is more than I can say for you. The audience roared, but the network's decision was clear. The floor manager approached Cher with a mic in one hand and an earpiece in the other, murmuring something the cameras couldn't catch. Cher's expression hardened instantly. They're actually making me leave, she said aloud, as if daring anyone to confirm it. Whoopi, visibly torn, gave a small nod. That's the call from upstairs. The crowd's energy shifted from excitement to disbelief. Even those who had voted red were now on the edge of their seats. The reality of what was happening was sinking in. Cher was about to be escorted off the View, live on national television. Cher straightened her posture, towering in defiance. If I'm leaving on my terms. She turned to her fans in the audience, her voice booming. You've been amazing, and don't think for 1 second this is over. Joy couldn't resist one last jab. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. Cher stopped mid, slowly pivoting back toward her. The audience collectively held its breath. Joy, she said, her voice like steel. I am the door. The crowd lost its mind. Producers scrambled to maintain control as Cher began her slow, deliberate walk toward the exit, every camera tracking her. But just before she reached the edge of the stage, she turned around. Something in her eyes said she wasn't done yet. Cher stopped dead in her tracks, heels planted firmly against the studio floor. The audience's noise dropped into a low, electric rumble. They could feel the air shift. She pivoted back toward the table, her eyes locked on Joy like she was about to deliver the final blow in a duel. Joy rolled her eyes. "Oh, here we go." Cher's voice sliced through the room. "Before I leave, let's clear something up. You didn't win. The network made a spectacle because drama sells, and you got to ride shotgun while they turned me into the story of the year. But make no mistake, Joy, the spotlight, it's still mine." The crowd exploded, with some leaping to their feet. Joy laughed, but it was forced, the sound brittle under the roar of the audience. "If you're so sure the spotlight's yours, why are you walking out of here?" Cher stepped forward, closing the gap between them. "Because queens don't fight in other people's castles. They burn them down and build their own." The audience lost it. People were on their feet, clapping, shouting, phones out to capture the moment. Even Whoopi's eyes went wide, realizing this was a clip that would be replayed for years. Cher turned to the cameras again, her voice steady and deliberate. "To everyone watching at home, you'll be hearing from me very soon. And trust me, I've got names." Gasps rippled across the set. Joy's smile faltered. "Names? What's that supposed to mean?" Cher gave her a knowing look. "Oh, you'll find out." The floor manager was now practically waving her toward the exit, the control room in chaos. But Cher didn't rush. She took her time, milking every second of live airtime. As she passed the front row, she reached out and high-fived a fan, holding up a bright green "Stay Cher" sign. At the doorway, she paused once more, turning her head just enough for the cameras to catch her final expression, a mix of defiance and amusement. "This was fun," she said, "but it's not the end." And with that, she was gone. The second the door shut behind her, Joy exhaled, leaning back in her chair like she'd just run a marathon. But before she could speak, Whoopi cut in. "You think she's really leaving it there? You don't know, Cher." Somewhere backstage, a muffled commotion could be heard. Cher wasn't done after all. The muffled noise backstage grew louder, shouts, hurried footsteps, the kind of chaos that makes producers exchange panicked looks. Joy glanced toward the side curtain, a flicker of unease breaking through her smug expression. Then it happened. Cher burst back onto the set. Not walking, not striding, storming, like she had every right to reclaim the stage. The audience went berserk, half screaming her name, half shouting in disbelief. Joy's eyes widened. "Oh, you've got to be kidding me." Cher ignored her entirely, heading straight for the moderator's chair. Whoopi stood halfway up, unsure whether to stop her or hand her the seat. Cher took it without asking. "You can't just." Joy started. "Sit down, Joy," Cher snapped, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "I've got something to say, and I'm not leaving until I do." The control room was in chaos, every producer yelling into their headsets, debating whether to cut the feed or let it roll. The ratings ticker on the live monitor was spiking even higher than before. Cher faced the camera, her gaze like a laser. "To everyone watching, you just saw how quickly this industry will turn on you. They'll build you up, they'll tear you down, and they'll smile while they do it. But me, I don't play their game. I make my own." The crowd roared. Joy tried to interject, but Cher's hand shot up. "I'm not finished." She leaned forward, voice dropping to a dangerous whisper that still carried through every mic. "The people in charge think they're safe because they hide behind contracts and closed doors. But if they keep pushing me, I'll tell the world everything I know, and I mean everything." Gasps rippled through the audience. Even Sunny Hostin looked stunned, her hand frozen halfway to her mouth. Joy tried one last time. "Cher, this isn't your show, not yet," Cher said with a smirk. That single line sent the crowd into another frenzy. Whoopi finally stepped in, placing a hand on Cher's shoulder. "You've made your point, but you can't hijack the whole broadcast." Cher stood, towering over the table. "Oh, Whoopi, I just did." Security began moving in from the wings, but Cher didn't flinch. She blew a final kiss to the audience, then turned and walked out. This time for real. The set was silent for a beat. Then Joy muttered under her breath, "Good riddance." The mic caught it. The internet would catch fire within the hour. The moment Joy's muttered "good riddance" hit the mic, the audience reacted like a lit fuse. Gasps, boos, and scattered applause clashed in a storm of noise. Whoopi's eyes shot toward Joy, her expression screaming, "Did you really just say that on live TV?" But before anyone could respond, a loud metallic clang echoed from backstage. The cameras caught the startled reactions of the co-hosts just as Cher's unmistakable voice rang out. "Oh, I heard that, Joy." The audience erupted. Cher reappeared in the doorway, not storming this time, but walking with a slow, deliberate confidence. In her hand, she held the mic she had supposedly left behind, twirling the cord like a weapon. "You think you can end this with a cheap shot?" she called across the set. "Sweetheart, I invented cheap shots." Joy leaned forward, bracing herself. "Then take your best one, because after today, you're never coming back here." Cher stepped forward until she was just inside, the glow of the stage lights. "You're right about one thing, I won't be coming back here, because the next time you see me on TV, it'll be my show." and I'll be inviting all the people you've burned over the years." The audience roared so loudly that Whoopi's attempts to restore order were drowned out. Cher turned, giving the cameras one last perfect close-up. "This is the last thing I'll say on The View. Never underestimate the woman who's been underestimated her whole life. I didn't survive 5 decades in this business to be voted off by a handful of red cards." She flashed a wicked smile. "I'll see you soon." This time, when she walked off, she didn't look back. The door shut with a quiet finality that somehow carried more weight than all the shouting that had come before. On set, Joy sat frozen, her victory feeling strangely hollow. Whoopi exhaled into her mic. "Well, that's live television for you." The camera lingered on Joy for a moment too long, catching the faint flicker of doubt in her eyes. In the control room, the director whispered to his assistant, "We just made history." And somewhere backstage, Cher was already on her phone, smiling like a chess player who had just set up checkmate 3 moves in advance. As the credits rolled, a final graphic flashed across the screen. Want more unbelievable stories? Subscribe to HOA Storysphere.